How often do you find yourself thinking about what others think of you? Do you catch yourself worrying about how they see you, what they say behind your back, or how they judge your actions? It's almost as if you can't escape it, the constant buzz of external voices, opinions, and expectations. But what if I told you that all this noise, all this unnecessary thought, is nothing but a trap? A trap that steals your peace, your power, and your true self. We all do it. It's human nature to care about how others perceive us. Yet, does it bring us joy? Does it bring us peace? Does it improve our lives? No. It only burdens us. It leaves us in a state of constant worry, anxiety, and self-doubt. And it is in this state of constant external focus that we lose sight of what truly matters: our own well-being, our own values, and our own inner strength. Have you ever paused and asked yourself, why am I letting someone else's thoughts or opinions control my mood? It's as though we are chained to the judgments of others, reacting to things we cannot control. And in this dance, we lose ourselves. But what if you could stop? What if you could rise above? What if you could take back the power that rightfully belongs to you? Welcome to Stoic Greetings, where we dive deep into the wisdom that can free your mind from the clutter of other people's judgments. We're here to remind you that the only opinion that matters is your own, the only perspective that counts is your own, and the only control you have is over yourself. So please, like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. There are so many views here, but only 0.2% of you have subscribed. Don't just watch, engage. Join the movement of those who choose to take control of their own lives, their own thoughts, and their own peace. The truth is, the Stoics knew this struggle well. They understood that we can't control what others think of us, but we can control how we react. They taught that by practicing self-discipline, emotional fortitude, and detachment, we can step away from the noise and find a stillness that is far more valuable than any external validation. So, let's take the first step together. Let's silence the noise of others and find the power in our own silence. The illusion of importance. No one is as critical as you think. Why do we care so much about how others see us? Why does the opinion of someone we might never meet again have the power to shake us so deeply? This is one of the greatest illusions we live with, the illusion that others' judgments are more important than our own thoughts, our own values, and our own sense of worth. In truth, no one thinks about us as much as we imagine. It's a harsh truth, yet it's liberating once we accept it. We spend so much of our energy crafting the image we want others to see. We walk through life, pretending to be something we think will earn respect or approval. We bend and twist ourselves, pretending to be who others expect us to be, all while ignoring our true selves. But here's the thing. People are far too busy with their own lives to think about you as much as you think they do. In fact, they're probably not thinking about you at all, and even if they are, those thoughts are fleeting. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic philosopher and emperor, reminds us in his Meditations that everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. It's a simple but profound truth. The opinions of others are just that, opinions. They are not truths. They are not facts. They are perceptions shaped by the other person's experiences, biases, and moods. Just like our own judgments of others, their judgments of us are not universal truths, but temporary reactions. They are rooted in their own understanding of the world, not in any objective reality about us. Yet, how often do we believe that their opinions are the absolute truth? We take their words, their judgments, and their looks as if they are the final verdict on our worth. We are so quick to internalize these fleeting moments, allowing them to dictate how we feel about ourselves. Why is it so easy to be influenced by others when we would never allow a stranger to control our thoughts on any other matter? The truth is, it's easier than we think. It's easier because we are not grounded in our own truth. We have not taken the time to define who we are based on our own values and understanding of the world. Instead, we have allowed external forces to shape us. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, tells us, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." How true this is. When we fear judgment, when we fear rejection, we are suffering long before anything has actually happened. We imagine how others might view us, and in doing so, we create a world of worry and fear. But when we face the truth, when we see how fleeting and insignificant others' judgments really are, this fear begins to fade. The only thing that holds us back is our own mind. Think about it for a moment. When was the last time you judged someone as harshly as you judge yourself? When was the last time you analyzed someone else's actions so closely that it became the focus of your day? The truth is, most people are not focused on us nearly as much as we are on them. Their attention is directed inward, toward their own lives, their own challenges, their own worries. They might glance at us, form an opinion, and move on. And yet, we hold on to these fleeting moments as if they were the key to our entire existence. The Stoics understood this deeply. They recognized that the opinions of others are just echoes in the wind. They come and go, leaving no trace behind unless we choose to hold on to them. The Stoic way is to detach ourselves from the need for approval. Instead, we place our focus on what is within our control, our thoughts, our actions, and our responses. Everything else is beyond our reach, and so it cannot be a source of our happiness or our peace. To live with the constant need for others' approval is like being a puppet, controlled by the whims of others. Our strings are pulled, and we react without thinking, without choice. But you are not a puppet. You are a person with the power to choose how you respond, and you must choose wisely. Recognize the power that you have, the power to choose your own thoughts, your own values, and your own sense of self-worth. Epictetus, another great Stoic teacher, gives us a powerful insight in his discourses. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When we are faced with judgment, with criticism, or with rejection, it is not the event itself that causes us harm. It is our reaction to it. When we allow someone's opinion to disturb our peace, we are giving them control over us. But when we learn to detach ourselves from the judgment of others, we regain that control. We reclaim our power. This is where true freedom lies. Freedom from the opinions of others. Freedom from the need to prove ourselves, to justify our existence, to earn someone else's approval. This is not an easy path to walk, but it is the only path to true peace. It is a path that leads us back to ourselves, to our core, to our unshakable sense of self. Imagine, for a moment, living a life where you no longer worry about what others think of you. A life where you walk through the world with your head held high, unaffected by the fleeting judgments of others. This is the life that the Stoics teach us to embrace. A life where we define ourselves by our own actions, our own values, and our own sense of purpose. Now, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what would happen if I let go of the need for others' approval? How would your life change if you stopped worrying about how others saw you? How much lighter would you feel? The truth is, you would feel free. You would feel at peace. You would feel powerful, because you would no longer be a prisoner of other people's opinions. So, step back. Take a moment to reflect. The next time you find yourself worried about what others think, remember this: their opinions are not yours to carry. Their judgments are their own, shaped by their own experiences, fears, and biases. Let them go. Focus on what you can control: your thoughts, your actions, and your peace. You are the master of your own mind. You have the power to choose how you react to the world around you. And when you choose to detach yourself from the judgments of others, you will discover a strength and a peace that no one can take from you. That, my friend, is the true power of Stoicism. The cage of external validation, a silent slave's life. How many times have you looked for approval from others? Whether it's in the form of praise, likes, or simply a nod of acknowledgement, it's a basic part of human nature to crave validation. We seek it in our work, in our relationships, and in the ways we present ourselves to the world. It's as if, deep inside, we believe that our worth can only be measured by how others see us. But the truth is darker than this simple need for approval. When we live for external validation, we are, in essence, living as slaves to others. Think about it. Every time you adjust your behavior to meet the expectations of others, you're putting yourself in a cage. You are no longer living freely, you are living according to someone else's desires. You shape your life around their approval, constantly making sure you are what they want you to be, rather than what you are meant to be. You give up your power, your freedom, and your peace, all for something that is fleeting and unreliable, the validation of others. The Stoics recognized this very danger. In fact, they often warned against becoming too concerned with external opinions. Epictetus, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, told us that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. He didn't just mean that in the grand sense. He meant it about everything, even the small things. If you live for the approval of others, their judgments will control you. If you live for your own approval, you hold the keys to your own freedom. Let's take a moment and look at a simple, everyday example. Think about the last time you made a decision based on what others might think. Maybe it was the clothes you wore, the job you took, or the way you spoke in a meeting. Did you do it because it felt right to you, or because you were worried about how others would see you? When we constantly seek approval, we are not truly living for ourselves. We are living for a crowd that doesn't even know us. And in doing so, we lock ourselves in a cage built by external expectations. This is a heavy burden to carry, one that often leads to feelings of emptiness. You may achieve the approval of others, but does that bring lasting fulfillment? Or does it simply create a cycle of needing more praise, more recognition, more validation? Eventually, you'll find that external validation never satisfies you for long. It's like trying to fill a cup that has no bottom. No matter how much you pour in, it will never be enough. Why do we fall into this trap so easily? One reason is because our society places such a high value on external success, wealth, fame, beauty, and power. From the moment we're born, we are conditioned to believe that these things define our worth. We see people praised for their accomplishments, and we begin to equate our own worth with how much we can gain from others. But the Stoics remind us that true happiness comes from within, not from external sources. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic emperor, said it best when he wrote in his Meditations, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Your happiness is not dependent on whether others approve of you or not. It's dependent on how you choose to think about yourself and the world around you. If you let external validation dictate your happiness, you will never be free. You will always be a prisoner to the opinions of others. So, how do we break free from this cage? It starts with shifting our focus. Instead of looking outward for validation, we must turn inward. We must learn to value ourselves, not because of what others think, but because of who we are. This is not arrogance or selfishness, it's self-respect. You have the power to choose your own worth. You don't need to wait for someone else to tell you that you're good enough. You were born enough. In the moment you realize this truth, you begin to free yourself from the cage of external validation. The Stoics practiced what is called ataraxia, a state of serene calmness, free from the disturbance of external influences. They understood that by detaching from the opinions and judgments of others, they could achieve peace and contentment. This doesn't mean we stop caring about people entirely. It means we stop allowing their approval to define us. You can care about others, help others, and love others, but you don't need their validation to feel good about yourself. You are whole, just as you are. Consider the example of Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, who, despite being wealthy and powerful, lived with an awareness of how fleeting external success can be. He did not base his happiness on his wealth or reputation. Instead, he found peace and understanding that his worth was intrinsic, not dependent on external factors. Seneca's life teaches us that, no matter how successful we may be in the eyes of others, it is our inner life that determines our peace. To break free from the cage of external validation, you must learn the art of self-control and emotional resilience. The more you practice this, the more you begin to feel a shift in your inner world. You stop being a slave to others' opinions, and instead, you begin to master your own thoughts and feelings. It is through this mastery that you will find true freedom. At first, the process may feel uncomfortable. You may find yourself craving the validation you once relied on. But, over time, as you practice detachment, you will feel the weight lift off your shoulders. No longer will you be bound by the need to please others. You will walk through the world with a sense of purpose and confidence that comes from knowing that you are enough, just as you are. The journey towards self-validation is not an easy one, but it is the only one worth taking. The Stoics taught us that the only thing we can control in this life is our own reactions and our own thoughts. Everything else, the opinions of others, the judgments of the world, the passing trends of society, is beyond our control. So why waste your energy trying to control something you cannot? Instead, turn inward. Find peace in your own thoughts. Find strength in your own character. It is through this inner strength that you will break free from the cage of external validation. You will no longer need to seek approval from others, because you will have already approved of yourself. This is the true meaning of freedom, the freedom to live according to your own values, not the fleeting desires of others. When you live like this, you are not only free, you are unstoppable. So ask yourself today, what part of my life am I still living for others? And, more importantly, what would my life look like if I lived only for my own values and truth? The answers you find may surprise you. The mirror of the self, how projection clouds reason. Let's take a deep breath. Stop for a moment. Close your eyes if you need to. Think about the last time someone said something about you that upset you. Or maybe it wasn't even something they said, but something you assumed they were thinking. Maybe it was a look, a gesture, or just a feeling you had. You felt it in your chest, didn't you? That sharp, uncomfortable sensation. But here's the truth, that feeling had nothing to do with the other person. It had everything to do with you. Now, let's think for a moment. Why do we let this happen? Why do we get so affected by the actions or words of others? When you feel hurt or angry about something someone else did or said, ask yourself, am I truly reacting to them? Or am I projecting my own fears, insecurities, or assumptions onto them? You see, most of the time, our feelings have nothing to do with what the other person has done. They are simply a reflection of what we carry within ourselves. The Stoics were masters at recognizing this. They understood that the world is not the problem. The problem lies in how we perceive the world. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This is one of the most powerful truths you can grasp. Your reactions, your emotions, they are your own responsibility. But most of us don't realize this. Instead, we let external events, people's words, their actions, their opinions control how we feel and think. Think about it. You might see someone look at you a certain way, and instantly, you feel self-conscious, defensive, or angry. Why? Because you project your own insecurities onto that moment. Maybe you're feeling vulnerable, unsure of yourself, and suddenly, a look or a word becomes a confirmation of everything you fear. But here's the thing, that look, that word, It might have nothing to do with you. It might be about them, their own struggles, their own projections. This is the heart of Stoic wisdom, the idea that we must learn to distinguish between what is truly in our control and what is not. Our own feelings, our own responses, these are in our control. The actions of others, their words, their opinions, these are not. The more we understand this distinction, the less power the world has over us. The more we focus on mastering our inner responses, the more we begin to live life with strength, clarity, and peace. Let's break this down a bit further. Imagine you're walking down the street, and you see someone look at you with a cold expression. In that instant, your mind might race. What did I do wrong? Do they not like me? What did I say to upset them? And just like that, you're caught in a storm of thoughts and emotions. But here's the key question you should ask yourself. Is this reaction really about them? Or is it about me? When you react to what someone else does or says, you're revealing something about yourself, your fears, your desires, your past experiences. You're projecting onto them your own inner world. This is what the Stoics call projection. It's a pattern of thinking that distorts reality and causes unnecessary suffering. Instead of seeing things clearly as they are, you see them through the lens of your own assumptions, judgments, and biases. The solution isn't to try and change the way others behave. That's outside your control. The solution is to change the way you respond. If you can learn to step back, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, is this really about me? Or is this something I'm projecting from within myself? Then you begin to break free from the prison of your own emotions. You start to realize that you don't need to be controlled by other people's actions. You can choose how you respond. You can choose peace. Seneca, another prominent Stoic philosopher, said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This is so true when it comes to the way we react to others. We imagine all sorts of things based on the smallest actions or words. Someone looks at us strangely, and suddenly, we're convinced they dislike us, that they're judging us, that they're thinking things we're not even sure are true. But the reality is, we don't know what's going on in their mind. We can't. And so, we're left with nothing but our own assumptions, assumptions that may not be based on anything but our own fears. Now, this doesn't mean we should stop caring about how others perceive us. It doesn't mean we should shut ourselves off from the world or stop trying to build good relationships. What it means is this. We must not let the perceptions of others become our reality. We must not let them define who we are. If someone criticizes us, we can ask ourselves, is there truth in this? And if there is, we can use it to improve. But if there is no truth in it, then we must let it go. We must not let the opinions of others hold power over us. They are not the mirror in which we should see ourselves. In fact, this is the essence of what the Stoics taught about external events. They believed that we are responsible only for our own thoughts, actions, and reactions. Everything else is beyond our control. By practicing this, we begin to free ourselves from the constant need for approval, for validation, for the constant worry about how others see us. We begin to understand that the only thing that truly matters is how we see ourselves, how we choose to act, how we choose to think, how we choose to respond. When we stop projecting our fears and insecurities onto others, we begin to live more freely. We begin to see people for who they truly are, not through the lens of our own worries and assumptions. And when we do this, we create a space for deeper connection, for understanding, and for real peace. So, the next time you feel upset by someone's words or actions, take a moment. Pause. Ask yourself, am I reacting to something that's really about me? And then, choose to respond with wisdom. Choose to see the situation clearly, without the cloud of your own projections. When you do this, you'll find that the world around you becomes calmer, and you become stronger. You will no longer be a prisoner of your own thoughts and assumptions. Instead, You will stand firm, grounded in your own truth, unaffected by the fleeting opinions of others. Remember, the Stoic life is one of self-mastery. It's about recognizing that the only thing we can control is ourselves, our thoughts, our actions, our responses. And by mastering ourselves, we can walk through the world with peace, with clarity, and with strength. Amor fati and indifference, embracing the Stoic way. We are often told that life is about embracing change, finding meaning in every moment, and facing adversity with grace. But how many of us truly understand what that means? How many of us live each day with the idea that everything that happens to us, no matter how difficult or painful, is exactly as it should be? The Stoics believed in something called amor fati, a love of fate. They understood that life's trials, no matter how harsh, are not to be feared or resisted. Instead, we must learn to embrace them, for they are as much a part of our journey as the moments of joy and success. Amor fati is the mindset that allows us to take what life gives us, good or bad, and accept it with open arms. It's the belief that the universe, in its infinite complexity, unfolds just as it should, and everything that happens to us, whether we understand it or not, is meant to be. Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Nietzsche spoke of this idea not as something passive, but as a way to empower ourselves. It is not about resigning ourselves to fate, but about actively choosing to love whatever comes our way. This is the core of Stoic philosophy, to not only endure life's challenges, but to welcome them, knowing that they shape us into who we are meant to be. When we resist fate, we waste energy. We cling to things we cannot control, causing us unnecessary frustration. Have you ever tried to control the uncontrollable? A loved one's actions, the weather, the opinions of strangers, these are things that are not in your hands. Yet, we waste so much of our time fighting them. We suffer needlessly because we refuse to let go of control over the uncontrollable. The Stoic doesn't waste time on these things. Instead, they direct their energy inward, focusing only on what they can control, their own thoughts, actions, and responses. Imagine this for a moment. You wake up to a day that feels overwhelming. You have too much to do, too little time, and you feel the weight of the world pressing down on you. In that moment, most people would react by feeling anxious, frustrated, or helpless. But what if you chose to think differently? What if you accepted that the challenges you face today are a part of your journey, and instead of resisting them, you embraced them? What if you could see each moment, each challenge, as an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more in control of your own life? This is the beauty of amor fati. It's not about accepting things passively, it's about choosing to love them. It's about transforming the pain and struggle of life into the very fuel that drives us forward. It's about letting go of the idea that life owes us anything and instead recognizing that everything we encounter is a lesson. It is all part of the path to self-mastery. And this brings us to the concept of indifference, another cornerstone of Stoic thinking. To be indifferent doesn't mean to be cold or apathetic. It means to not be controlled by the outside world. A Stoic is indifferent to the opinions of others, to the ups and downs of life, to the fleeting emotions that come and go. They understand that these things are temporary, and they do not allow themselves to be swept away by them. True indifference is about choosing to remain unmoved by external forces because you are grounded in your own sense of purpose and self-control. Think of the great Stoic philosophers like Epictetus and Seneca, who lived lives of immense hardship and adversity. They were exiled, imprisoned, and faced loss, yet they remained unwavering in their principles. They practiced amor fati and indifference, not by rejecting life's hardships, but by embracing them. They understood that suffering was not something to avoid, but something to learn from. In every setback, there was an opportunity to grow. In every moment of pain, there was a lesson about resilience, strength, and inner peace. But how does this relate to you today? In your everyday life, you face countless obstacles. From the stress of work, to the strain of relationships, to the noise of the world, it can feel like there is no escape from the weight of external expectations. But the Stoics would tell you that the escape isn't found in avoiding these challenges. The escape is found in how you respond to them. You have the power to choose your response. You have the power to decide whether you will let the world's chaos shape you, or whether you will shape yourself in the midst of it. In every moment, you can practice a more fatty. When life doesn't go as planned, instead of resisting, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this moment to become stronger? When faced with criticism, instead of letting it tear you down, consider, is there truth in this? How can I grow from this feedback? When you are overwhelmed, instead of giving in to stress, take a breath and remember, this is an opportunity to practice patience, to practice self-control. This isn't just philosophy, it's a way of living, a way of thinking that transforms your experience of the world. By practicing a more fatty, you stop seeing obstacles as roadblocks. Instead, you see them as stepping stones. You stop viewing failure as a reflection of who you are, and instead see it as part of the process of becoming better, stronger, more resilient. Now, you may be wondering, what if things get too difficult? What if the pain is too great to bear? The Stoics didn't ignore the reality of suffering. They didn't claim that life would be easy or that hardship could be avoided. But they did teach us that we can choose how we experience that pain. Suffering is inevitable in life, but our suffering is not determined by the events that happen to us. It is determined by how we choose to respond. Let's take the example of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. Despite being one of the most powerful men in the world, he faced constant warfare, political strife, and personal loss. Yet, he remained focused on his inner peace, practicing Stoic philosophy in the midst of chaos. In his meditations, he reminds himself that the obstacles he faces are a part of his journey. He writes, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the essence of a more fatty and indifference. The obstacles you face are not there to break you. They're there to build you. The pain you endure is not meaningless. It is the fire that forges your character, strengthens your resolve, and refines your soul. You cannot escape hardship, but you can choose how to embrace it. You can choose to see every setback as an opportunity, every challenge as a lesson. So, how do you begin to live by these principles? Start small. In every moment of frustration, pause and ask yourself, can I love this moment? Can I embrace this challenge? In every instance of hardship, remind yourself that this is the path to growth. Choose not to resist, but to welcome. Choose not to suffer, but to learn. And in doing so, you will find that life no longer has the power to control you. You will find that you are the one in control, not of the world, but of your own mind. This is the way of the Stoic. This is the path of true freedom. Epictetus' door, what we let in is what rules us. There is a door within each of us. It is the gate that decides what enters our mind, what shapes our emotions, and what governs our actions. You may not realize it, but every moment of your life, you stand before this door. And what you allow to come through, the thoughts, the judgments, the external forces, that is what shapes your world. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, a man who endured slavery and hardship, yet found his freedom in thought, once said, "We are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens." His words ring as true today as they did thousands of years ago. What does this mean for us in our daily lives, in our daily struggles? It means that we are not victims of our circumstances, as we often believe. No, we are victims of what we allow ourselves to think, to feel, to focus on. Take a moment to reflect. How much of your emotional turmoil is due to things outside of your control? How much of your stress, your anger, your frustration is a result of letting things into your mind that should never have been allowed in? If we continue to focus on things that we cannot control, we remain powerless. But if we close the door to distractions, to judgments, to opinions that do not serve us, we open ourselves up to true freedom. Epictetus himself was forced to live through unimaginable conditions. Born into slavery, he had no control over his circumstances. He was whipped, mistreated, and bound by the chains of others' decisions. But his mind? His mind was his own. In the face of suffering, he chose not to let his thoughts be enslaved. He chose to focus on what was within his power, his own reaction, his own perspective. And this, more than anything, gave him his freedom. So why do we let ourselves become trapped by external forces? Why do we place our happiness, our sense of peace, in the hands of other people, events, or circumstances? It is because we have not fully understood the power we hold within. You see, life will always throw challenges our way. People will disappoint us. Situations will be less than ideal. But it is not these things that cause us suffering, it is what we choose to believe about them. When we attach ourselves to the idea that we must control every external circumstance to be happy, we lose sight of the fact that happiness, contentment, and peace are not external things. They are internal. They live within us, in the realm of our thoughts, our beliefs, and our self-control. Think about it for a moment. Every time you get upset because of someone's actions, you are giving them power over you. Every time you let anger rise because someone cut you off in traffic, you are opening the door to frustration. Every time you feel anxiety over what others might think of you, you are letting fear into your mind. You are not free in these moments. You are a slave to your reactions. But the Stoics, like Epictetus, had a different way of seeing things. They taught that our power lies in how we respond. They believed that the greatest strength is to remain unshaken, no matter what happens around us. In other words, we cannot always control what enters our lives, but we can control what enters our minds. Epictetus would ask us to think about this door. Imagine it standing before you, a gate that separates the chaos of the world from the peace of your inner self. Every time a new thought comes to your mind, a judgment from others, a worry about the future, a fear of failure, you have a choice. You can either open the door and let it in, or you can keep it closed, allowing only what serves you to pass through. It's not easy, of course. In fact, it requires a discipline that most of us have forgotten how to practice. We live in a world that constantly bombards us with noise, with distractions, with the need for approval and validation. It feels like we are surrounded by a million voices, each one telling us who we should be, how we should act, and what we should want. But if we can learn to close the door to this external chaos, we can start to hear the quiet voice of our true selves. And in this silence, we find strength. To live like a Stoic means to understand that not everything that comes our way deserves our attention. Not every opinion, not every event, not every word has the power to control us unless we allow it. We must learn to build a shield around our minds, a shield that protects us from the unnecessary weight of other people's judgments, fears, and expectations. This is where the practice of mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is not just about being aware of the present moment, but about being aware of what is worth your attention. It's about making a choice to protect your peace. Each time something tries to pull you away from your center, you have a choice. You can let it in, or you can choose to let it pass by like a fleeting cloud in the sky. Epictetus often spoke of the importance of focusing only on what is within our control. He said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. Our reactions, our judgments, and our responses are always within our control. Everything else, the actions of others, the events of the world, the circumstances that unfold, are not." When we stop worrying about what we cannot control, We free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. Think about this for a moment. How much of your daily life is consumed by worrying about things outside of your control? How much energy do you spend on things that ultimately don't matter, or things that you have no power over? The key to peace, to strength, to resilience, lies in the ability to simply let go. To stop trying to control the uncontrollable and focus on what you can control, your own thoughts, your own actions, your own mind. The Stoics were not naive. They knew that life is full of challenges, struggles, and pain. They knew that external forces would sometimes bring hardship into our lives. But they also knew that the ultimate freedom lies in how we choose to respond. The greatest battles we fight are not against the world, but against ourselves, against our own tendency to let the noise of the world into our minds, against our desire to please others, to gain approval, to seek validation from people and things that don't truly matter. So, the next time you stand before that door, that gate between your mind and the outside world, ask yourself, what am I letting in? Is it something that strengthens me? Something that brings me closer to my true self? Or is it something that drags me into fear, anger, or frustration? Remember, what you let in is what rules you. The door is yours to open or close. And the strength you seek, the peace you long for, is found in the power to decide what stays and what goes. By following the Stoic path, we reclaim our power. We stop living in reaction to the world around us. Instead, we choose to live in response to the world within us. That is the door of freedom, and it is always within reach. The quiet fortress, building an unshakable mind. In a world constantly in motion, with distractions everywhere, the greatest power you can have is the ability to remain still, mentally still. Imagine being like a fortress, standing firm against the storm. No matter how fierce the winds of criticism, fear, or desire blow, you remain unshaken, grounded in your own strength. This is not just a dream. This is the reality you can build within yourself if you understand and apply the Stoic philosophy. It is the art of becoming impervious to the things outside of you that would normally disrupt your peace. It is the practice of mastering your mind. But how can one achieve this? How can you build this impenetrable fortress within yourself? First, you must understand that your mind is a battlefield. There are constant forces vying for your attention, the opinions of others, the rush of modern life, the need to compare yourself to others, and the temptation to react emotionally to every situation. These forces can overwhelm you, especially if you don't have a clear plan to protect your inner peace. It's easy to get swept up in the drama of the world around you. It's easy to be pulled into conflicts, judgments, and anxieties that belong to others, not you. But to build your fortress, you need to recognize the enemy and refuse to engage. The Stoics believe that the mind is the only thing truly within our control. The external world, the actions of others, the events of the day, none of these are under our control. What we do have control over is how we respond. Think of it like this. Imagine two people facing the same problem. One is overwhelmed, panicked, and angry. The other remains calm, composed, and thoughtful. What is the difference? The second person has built their fortress. They have learned to control their mind, their emotions, and their reactions. A key Stoic idea here is the practice of indifference. This doesn't mean that you stop caring about the world around you. It doesn't mean you become cold or unfeeling. What it means is that you stop letting the world control your emotions. You stop letting your happiness depend on things outside of yourself. The Stoics called this the art of apatheia, which is often misunderstood. It's not apathy in the way we might think of it today, a coldness or a lack of care. It's a state of inner peace where you no longer allow the ups and downs of life to dictate your emotional state. Imagine the last time you were upset by something someone said to you. Perhaps you took it personally, perhaps it hurt. Perhaps it stayed with you long after the conversation ended. Now, imagine if you had built your fortress, if you had understood that what others say or do is not a reflection of you, but rather a reflection of them. Imagine how much energy you would save, how much mental space you would free up, simply by choosing not to react. That is the power of indifference. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it perfectly when he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." You will face criticism. You will face rejection. You will face challenges. But the question is, will you let these things shake you? Will you let them change your mood, your peace, your sense of self-worth? Or will you stand firm, like the fortress that you are meant to be? Another tool in building this mental fortress is self-discipline. You must train your mind just as you would train your body. If you want to be physically strong, you must exercise, eat right, and rest. If you want to be mentally strong, you must practice control over your thoughts, your emotions, and your reactions. This is where daily habits come in. The Stoics practiced daily reflection, journaling, and meditation to strengthen their minds. They also practiced virtue, striving to live with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance in everything they did. Self-discipline, however, is not about forcing yourself into a mold that doesn't fit you. It is about choosing your responses and actions based on your deeper values, rather than being swept along by the whims of your emotions. Self-discipline is the art of choosing what is good for you, even when it's hard. It's about setting boundaries for yourself, boundaries that protect your peace, your time, and your energy. It's about saying no to the distractions, the negative influences, and the emotional reactions that want to pull you off course. But let's not fool ourselves. Building a fortress within is not easy. It requires constant vigilance. It requires a willingness to face discomfort, to sit with your emotions without letting them control you, to question your automatic reactions. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, understood this struggle deeply. In his meditations, he often reminded himself to practice patience, to control his impulses, and to focus on the present moment. He knew that his thoughts could either build him up or tear him down, and he chose to control them. You see, the mind is like a garden. If you leave it untended, weeds of doubt, fear, and anger will grow. But if you tend to it carefully, if you water it with wisdom, prune it with self-discipline, and protect it from the toxic influences of the world, it will flourish. It will become strong, resilient, and unshakable. It's important to understand that building this fortress doesn't mean you become detached from the world. Far from it. Stoicism doesn't advocate for withdrawal from life's challenges. It advocates for engagement with life, but with the inner strength to not be swayed by it. You will experience hardship. You will experience loss, disappointment, and failure. But through all of it, you must remember that your fortress remains intact. You can still choose how to respond. You can still choose how to think. You can still choose your peace. The path to building a strong, resilient mind is gradual. It doesn't happen overnight. It requires consistent effort, humility, and self-awareness. But with time, you will notice a shift. The things that used to trigger you, the situations that used to unsettle you, they no longer have the same power. You stand firm. You remain calm. You remain in control. Think of it this way. If you want to be a true Stoic, you must practice mental fortitude. The true power lies in the ability to remain calm and composed, no matter what the world throws at you. Just like a fortress, your mind should be a place where nothing can enter unless you allow it. Your thoughts should be governed by reason, by wisdom, and by virtue, not by the uncontrollable forces of the world outside. And as you continue this journey, as you continue to build your inner fortress, remember, it's not about perfection. It's not about being flawless. It's about progress. Each day you have the chance to become stronger. Each day, you have the chance to be less affected by external events. Each day, you have the chance to become the master of your own mind. This is what it means to be truly free. This is what it means to live like a Stoic. When you learn to master your mind, you unlock a freedom that cannot be taken away. You unlock the freedom to live your life according to your values, to remain calm in the face of chaos, and to face any challenge with the unshakable strength of a true Stoic. And once you have built this fortress, you will find that the world outside will no longer have the power to control you. You will have the power to control yourself, and that is the greatest power of all. Death, distance, and detachment, the final perspective. Death. It is the one certainty we cannot escape. No matter how hard we try to avoid it, delay it, or deny it, death will come. And in that truth lies one of the most profound lessons we can learn, the power of detachment. Let's not fool ourselves by thinking we can avoid this reality. In fact, thinking we can avoid death or that it doesn't affect us is one of the most destructive things we can do. We, as human beings, have a natural desire to cling to life, to hold on to what we love, and to resist the inevitable end. But Stoic philosophy teaches us something that cuts straight to the core of this desire. It teaches us to embrace death, to detach from life's fleeting pleasures, and to accept the reality that nothing is permanent. The Stoics, men like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, all understood something crucial. By accepting the inevitability of death, we free ourselves from the fear of it. And in that freedom, we gain the power to live a fuller, richer life. They taught that we should not fear death, for it is simply a part of the natural order. The Stoic approach is not one of cold indifference, but of understanding. In Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, he writes, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." Think about this for a moment. Death is not the enemy. Fear of it is. The fear of death keeps us in a state of constant anxiety, preventing us from truly living. It keeps us tethered to a future that we cannot control, when we should be focused on the present, which we can control. When we think too much about the future, about death or what will happen after it, we become paralyzed. We stop living in the moment. We stop making the most of what we have right now. Our minds wander to the future, to things we cannot change, and in doing so, we forget about what is in front of us. We forget about the people we care about, the things we can accomplish, and the beauty of life itself. This is where the Stoic practice of distance comes into play. Distance from the fear of death, distance from the fear of losing what we hold dear, and distance from the fear of what others may think of us. By taking a step back and seeing life through the lens of acceptance, accepting that all things must end, we can fully appreciate the moments we have. We can detach from the idea that we need to hold on to everything, to control everything, and we can start to live with the kind of peace that only comes from knowing we are not bound by the fear of what comes next. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who was born a slave and rose to become one of the greatest teachers of the ancient world, said it best, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." It's the same with life and death. We do not need to fear death if we learn to want less. If we can detach from the things that bind us, our material possessions, our desires for fame, or our constant striving for validation, we can approach death with a sense of calm. We can accept that one day, everything we hold dear will slip away, and that is perfectly natural. Why do we struggle with detachment? It's because we live in a world that constantly tells us to hold on, to chase more, to acquire more, to fear losing what we have. But this only brings suffering. Every attachment, whether it's to a person, a place, or a possession, carries with it the risk of loss. And with that loss comes pain. So, the Stoics ask us, why not release that pain before it even comes? Why not let go now, while we can still enjoy the beauty of life without the constant fear of losing it. In Seneca's Letters from a Stoic, he teaches us that we should practice dying, not in the sense of wanting death, but in the sense of accepting that we must all face it one day. By doing this, we train our minds to be less attached to the things of this world and more focused on the things that truly matter: our character, our actions, and the quality of our relationships. Death, however, is not something we should obsess over. It's not about dwelling on the end, but rather about embracing the fact that it gives life meaning. If we lived forever, would anything have true value? It is because we know life is finite that we are able to appreciate it fully. The more we accept the truth of death, the more we realize that it is life itself that holds all the beauty and opportunity we crave. When you are no longer fearful of death, something powerful happens. You begin to see the world differently. You begin to realize that the little things, the worries, the small frustrations, the minor conflicts, they don't matter as much as you once thought. In the grand scheme of life, they are insignificant. And it's only in seeing life in this larger context that we can truly begin to appreciate its fleeting beauty. One of the most liberating ideas in Stoicism is that we do not control what happens to us, but we control how we react to it. Death, loss, and change are inevitable parts of life, but our response to them is entirely within our control. When you detach from the fear of death and the fear of loss, you become truly free. You are no longer shackled by the desire to hold on to everything. You learn to live with a sense of inner peace, understanding that everything in life is temporary. This doesn't mean we don't care about the people we love or the things that bring us joy, but rather that we understand the true nature of these things. They are not ours to keep forever. In the final analysis, death is not a force to be feared, but a reminder. It is a reminder to live fully, to embrace the present, and to detach from the things that do not serve our deeper purpose. It teaches us that our time is limited, and that the only thing we can truly control is how we spend that time. So, ask yourself, what are you holding on to? What fears, attachments, and anxieties are you clinging to in an effort to avoid the inevitable? Let them go. Embrace the truth of death not as an end, but as a gift that allows you to truly live. By living with detachment, detaching from the fear of death, detaching from the need to control everything, and detaching from the desire for external validation, you will find the freedom to live a life of purpose, peace, and power. Remember, death is not the enemy. It is the distance between now and forever that gives us the clarity to live the life we were meant to live. And in that clarity, we find our true strength.